Madam President, I walked onto the floor just as Senator Leahy was closing his remarks, and I want to tell you that we were together in the Judiciary Committee this morning where I joined the chorus of praise for his career and his service in the Senate, and it seems like every room he steps in, there's another tribute. Well-deserved. I thank him for being such a steadfast member of the Senate, and particularly of the Senate Judiciary Committee, which will forever be benefited by his contribution. But I rise today to speak on a different topic, and it's one that's very timely and important. Yesterday, a number of us received a classified briefing from the White House about Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. It was sobering. Russia continues to indiscriminately target civilian populations and infrastructure, killing tens of thousands of innocent people in Ukraine, leaving countless more in the bitter dark and cold without access to electricity, water, or heat. The briefing was also astonishing because it raised a bigger question. What has Vladimir Putin really accomplished with this cruel war? I'll tell you the answer. Today, as a result of Putin's barbaric invasion of Ukraine, the Western alliance in opposition to him is stronger than ever before. Putin's actions have strengthened the resolve of the Ukrainian people to fight to the death for a free and democratic country as they press back against Russian occupation and regain territory from Kharkiv to Kherson. Moreover, NATO is now stronger and more united, with two new countries, valuable additions to the NATO alliance, Sweden and Finland, soon to join the fold. And just this week, NATO also recommitted to continuing support for Ukraine. Countries have rallied behind the United States in sending everything from weapons to helmets to medical supplies to food, and in imposing crushing sanctions that are taking a massive toll on the Russian economy. Yesterday's briefing also made one thing abundantly clear. Now is not the time for the United States or NATO to back down. While Putin deceived himself into thinking the Ukrainian people would fold and welcome the Russian military with open arms, or that Kyiv could fall in days, the Ukrainian people and their desire for sovereignty and self-rule have prevailed. The world stepped up to help secure their freedom, bound together by the shared principles and international norms that dictators like Putin can never and will never wipe away. And the day will come when Putin and his thugs are held accountable for their war crimes, and sadly there are many. Since February, the United States alone has committed billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine, with defense articles delivered at record-breaking speed to support Ukrainian war efforts on the front lines. And just weeks ago, the White House requested another supplemental aid request for Ukraine. I support it. Now I understand that some members of Congress have expressed a concern about the economic consequences of increased defense spending and whether there's appropriate oversight of the actual funds sent and spent. I share those concerns. They're legitimate, they're reasonable, and I push the administration to ensure that it strengthens efforts to fully account for our assistance to Ukraine. I might just add parenthetically that over the decades that we were at war in Afghanistan, it's well known that so many dollars were wasted, American tax dollars, in an effort to stop the forces of terrorism that were residing in that country. We should never knowingly allow that to occur, and we certainly shouldn't in Ukraine, despite my wholehearted support for President Biden's supporting efforts. I'm glad my colleagues on the other side of the aisle finally joined us yesterday, in the confirmation of Robert Storch. He's going to be the next Inspector General in the Department of Defense. If you want to keep an eye on how the money's being spent in that great and important department, you need an Inspector General. It took us months to reach the point where the Senate confirmed his nomination. He will be key to oversight. Instead of looking for solutions, some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are vowing to stop assistance to Ukraine or to slow it down in another way to obstruct the Biden administration. In doing so, they are undermining our broader foreign assistance programs and ultimately undercutting the success of Ukraine's resistance. Madam President, you and I both know We have to fund the fiscal year we are currently in. It runs from October to October, and we are in that fiscal year already. We know that if we do a continuing resolution, there will be wasteful spending, and we will not be investing in the things we really need to keep America safe and strong. If we do the omnibus bill, omnibus appropriation bill, we can cure that problem by having specific appropriation bills that target the money where it is needed for our future. If we don't do that, it's going to undermine assistance in many areas, including Ukraine. We can't let leadership fail on either side of the aisle when it comes to this spending bill. As the Ukrainian people continue to fight, we must continue to stand by their side. Now, when the news first broke of Russia's full-scale invasion this past February, I was sitting in an airport departure lounge 800 miles away in Lithuania. Many in this chamber have heard me speak many times about my mother, who arrived in the United States from Russian-occupied Lithuania when she was 2 years old in the year 1911. Life was bleak and oppressive for the Lithuanian people at that time. It was no wonder that my family tried to escape the Russian Tsar and his heavy hand. But that was the case in Eastern Europe for many countries. So it's no surprise that when the Soviet Union collapsed, many of these same nations reached out to join the community of democracies and stand with us behind the shield of NATO. We welcome and supported Lithuania, the Baltic states, Poland, and so many other countries as we welcome Ukraine's efforts now to stop this invasion. Today, decades later, Lithuania is a thriving democracy and is among the many countries rallying to Ukraine's aid. I want to commend the people of Lithuania. So many times this tiny little nation has spoken out in courageous ways to stand up for democracy and freedom. I'm very proud of them and what they've done. The free nations of the world understand that Ukraine is on the front line in the battle of democracy over autocracy. It is a fundamental struggle between the rule of law and the rule of brute force. Now is not the time for the United States and the rest of the free world to in any way diminish their support for Ukraine. Like the Ukrainian people, we must show resolve, determination, and a commitment to fighting on and standing together in the defense of democracy. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of quorum.